intimate little panel. Everybody else is out there waiting to see Stan Lee, which is pretty cool. I would do the same thing. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's kind of exciting. Stan's here today. It's always exciting to see Mr. Lee, even though he's from the other side. Marvel group.
He was saying stuff similar.
Was he? Yeah. He's funnier than me too, so I'm glad he's not here. What a great guy, though. What energy he has. Isn't he amazing?
Yeah.
Amazing dude, so good for him. But let's talk about DC.
Yeah.
So, Dean Cain, you know him from Supergirl, Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman, and then you're in a new show called Hit the Floor, and then the $10 million Bounty with Bigfoot.
You're kind of mangling those titles, but I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, you can go on for hours and hours. I have a lot of credits on IMDb. There's no question about that. Currently on, we'll Hit the Floor is going to its fourth season, but we switched networks, going over to BET. But that's 10 episodes a year. It's a lot of fun. I've been doing that for several years now. Masters of Illusion I host, which has been a lot of fun. You may have seen me on the Today Show recently. If anybody gets home and watches that, I've been co-hosting that for a while. That's a lot of fun. Going to make a movie next week in New Mexico. Got a few still coming out. Busy as a bee.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
But I'm here in Nashville right now with y'all. So.
Yeah. So, how's Nashville been treating you?
Is that where we are? Oh yeah, Nashville. No, it's been great. I shot here last year. I've been in Nashville a lot. I'm very familiar with Nashville. I've been coming here for decades. I'm that old that I can do that. So I've been here quite a bit. My father, he directed the Pure Country franchise. So Pure Country 1 and 2, and he and I wrote 2 together. I did a lot of writing on 1, and so we've been out here in the Nashville world for a long time. I've directed a bunch of country music videos and things like that. The thing I'd like to do in Nashville the most today, I like being here, don't get me wrong, but the Titans are playing the Raiders right now, and that's kind of a thing that I want to see. Last I saw, Titans are up 10-7, or 10-3, something like that. Titans are up, so that's a good thing. But that's going to be a good game. I did play in the NFL before, so I'm interested in football. So.
Yeah,
It's 10-10? And it's a great game, too. I'll be all right.
Do you have the highlights being like streamed to your phone right now?
I do not, although my fantasy teams are all winning. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm currently winning every single one, and I have 4. Not that I'm obsessed or anything like that. Yeah, so that's exciting. It's exciting. The weather out here could not be nicer in Nashville right now. And I've seen a number of people at the hotel who were up here from Florida and from other places, hiding from the storm. So I don't know if anybody here is. If so, or if you have relatives down there, everybody's thinking and praying about them. So I hope that turns out okay, because they're starting to get hit now. It's looking rough out there.
Yeah.
If I had superpowers, I would really go down and help.
Everyone up, definitely.
I might swing through and help the Titans really quick, and then get down there.
There was an episode where you did that, didn't you? Where you stopped by the game before, saving people on a bus? Or
Absolutely. We started doing real fun things because I am sort of a sports fanatic. We do silly little one-off things to start the episode. Playing basketball with Bo Jackson or something like that. That stuff was great fun. Mm-hmm. Great fun. We had a lot of fun doing that stuff. I particularly had a lot of fun doing that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So as we keep talking, if you guys do want to have any questions, there is a mic right there, or since we're kind of in an intimate room,
we just scream at each other.
Yeah, so that'd be cool. Okay, so, yes, do you have a question?
There we go.
How much fun did you guys have when Terry Hatcher blew up the internet?
With the cape? Ah, yes. Well, seeing as how the internet was about 5 days old at that time, we dug it. We thought it was very cool. We were like, what is this internet thing, and what are they talking about? It was pretty cool. It's interesting, though, because at the time that was the most downloaded, image on the internet. It had like 35,000 downloads or something. Oh, my gosh. Maybe it was 1 million. Who knows? But nowadays, a tweet gets 74 million. I mean, what the heck in 15 seconds? So it was a different time, but it was pretty cool. And that was the first time ever, I think, that I was aware of the internet and fan groups having any sort of impact on maybe what the show would do. And because you're getting these instant responses. And I do recall our executive producers paying quite a bit of attention to that. Well, people want this, people seem to want that. And I remember being reticent about changing whatever course we were on to appease, who knew who it was. It could have been 3 people in a basement in Ohio. We didn't know. We didn't know at the time now, and it was Amy. She was, you were like 4. It's you're 10, typing away at the keyboard. So yeah, it was interesting to see that though. So that was sort of the fledgling part of the internet, and it was pretty cool that she had quote broke the internet before it was even born, basically. That was a very cool thing, and it's still a great image. It's a pretty sexy image in the cape. I'm not gonna lie.
So since we're talking about that, can you talk a little bit about the casting process with you and Terry? I heard that she was one of the best kissers in the lineup.
She wasn't one of the best kissers. She took the crown. I give that. Well, it was interesting because I was cast on a Thursday, and my celebration was my buddy who was my roommate. Because when you're learning your lines and things, you always like to bounce them off of somebody. And so my buddy had to be my Lois Lane all the time. Redheaded dude all the time being Lois. But he was a great guy. And he's like, man, if you get this, we need new boots and skis, and we're going skiing. His parents had a place in Utah. So I got the job on a Thursday. Friday, we were on our way. We were skiing the weekend in Utah. Maybe not the best thing to do right after you get a big job, I guess, go skiing, right? But we were there skiing, and I got a phone call from Warner Brothers, and they said, you got to come back because we're gonna cast Lois Lane, and you need to be there for this on Monday. So I had to turn around and come back the next day, and there were about 10 women. And I had seen Terry. She had been there at Network when I was there, but there were 2 other Lois Lanes. I was paired with the other 2, never paired with Terry. And then we had to come back and do this one scene in front of the network. And I was terrified the network would see that I couldn't handle the job. There I am 10 times in a row doing it. They'd be like, maybe we shouldn't have cast this kid in the first place. This guy sucks. But I was terrified of that. But then the scene was that Lois was a little inebriated, and she wanted to come into the room and sleep with me. And as badly as I may have wanted it, I'm saying, kids, earmuffs. Okay. And as bad, because go to sleep. There's one child in there. I see somebody. Okay. We and then Clark, being the moral, wonderful guy he is, would never do that in that situation, especially. So the scene starts with the girl she bursts through the door and plants one on me and pretty much tries to stay for a while. And that's for him. It's a her. Okay. I can only see the glasses. And it's a great disguise, by the way. So she comes in, she kisses him and wants to stay a while, and he has to say no. So I had to do this 10 times in a row. Great job. It was a great job. I warmed to the job right away. It was good. But it was interesting because people are very nervous when you're auditioning. We all get nervous, and you haven't run the lines of someone or something. So it was interesting, the wide array of kisses I got coming through the door. It ran the gamut, by the way, the whole gamut. And then Terry was the final one, and she was the best kisser, and she was the best actress, and boom, she was Lois Lane. I still think she's the best Lois Lane to ever play the role, too. So she gets that. She gets my highest praise as Lois.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm a little scared of her, so I have to say it. It's in my contract.
So, yes, you have a question.
What's it like having chats with other people that have played Superman in your career?
It's interesting, because I know a lot of the people who have played Superman in that sense. I never had a chance to meet Christopher Reeve. I wish I had, because he's my Superman. That's who I think of as Superman. That's how I sort of modeled my Superman character, who for me was actually the disguise, because Clark Kent's character was the character, and being Superman was his disguise. So I sort of played the Clark was Clark, but when he went to do his super things, he was Superman. I sort of pictured him as the Christopher Reeve version. Brandon Routh and I have chatted about it quite a bit, but he only, he had the one film, and it was a little bit of a different film. That one always made me mad, that particular film, for so many reasons. But Brandon did a good job, and he was, I don't think he was anything to do with the reason that the film didn't work particularly well. And I've spoken to guys like Tim Daly, who voiced the character and such, and I only had a brief conversation with Henry Cavill before he had really played the role. So never had a chance to talk to him about that much. But it was interesting talking to Tom Welling when I did Smallville, and again he was playing Clark. It was an interesting thing for him, I guess. No flight But no suit, no flight, or
No flight, no tights.
no flight, no tights. That was it. I got to get the saying right. So it was a different incarnation too. So we really kind of didn't talk about that so much. But I think there's a certain, even now Tyler Hoechlin, I haven't had a chance to talk to him, but there's a certain thing, and I think Melissa Benoist has it very much. There's a kindness and a warmness, I think, to Superman or Supergirl, anybody playing that character. And I think that's really important. And I don't think they have that in the current incarnation of the films. I don't think they're looking for that. I don't think they want that. And for me, that's not my favorite version of Superman. I like Superman as a character of light and hope and positivity. I couldn't, in the first Superman versus Batman, was it the first Superman, I guess, with Henry, when he was fighting, not Zod, but basically Zod. And they're ripping through the buildings and stuff. I was like, how many people are dying in those buildings right now? That's not a Superman thing to do because that's his weakness. He would try to save everybody. And, he would put those lives up there. So it's a different incarnation. I don't like the angsty version so much, but that's up to Zach and those guys, and they'll figure it out. But I'd like to see a little bit of humor and romance in the character. I think that's a big part of it.
With all the crossovers the CW is doing, would you like to cross over to Arrow or Flash and kind of do some stuff with them?
It'd be fun to see Jeremiah Danvers do some more things. I think he's a fun character.
Maybe fight him.
I'm fighting everybody. Every time I'm in the thing, I'm fighting somebody. All right. David Harewood and I, we see each other. Hey, how you doing? Let's start fighting. I don't know which character, who I'm going to fight. I fought Hank Henshaw. I fought Martian Manhunter. I fought Cyborg Superman. Everybody he plays, I fight. And I think I'm 2 and 1. I don't know what I am, but it's a lot of fun. And David's he's a great guy. How am I? Does anybody know? No? Okay. I think I'm 2 and 1. I don't know. But it's a lot of fun. It'd be great to take that character and move him around a little bit. It's great to see the way they do that.
With especially the multiverse, I could see them taking your Superman even, and maybe Flash visiting that world where you're still Superman. That'd be fun.
That'd be different because in that world I'm not Superman. I'm still Jeremiah Danvers. So I don't think they could cross over to Superman with that. That'd be interesting. It's interesting that David Harewood's character became Cyborg Superman. I don't think David loved that so much because I don't think they fleshed that character out as much for him. Who knows? I think, and I don't know the answer to this. I think they were pushing to sort of have me transition into a sort of a Cyborg Superman kind of guy, which is interesting. But I don't know. It'd be fun to go over and wreak havoc on a couple of other shows and then come back as a villain and beat up my daughters. That's not right. Is it? No, that's not right. That's not right. And then turn good, like a Darth Vader, at the end. You turn good, throw somebody else into the fire or something. I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting. It'd be interesting to do. I'd love to see Lois and Clark get a reboot and do about 6 episodes as Lois and Clark. That'd be cool. I'd like to see it go to Netflix or something like that so you can stream the 4 seasons and then catch up with them 20 years later. It'd be kind of that'd be unique, and that's kind of the thing. I like something that's a little bit risque, taking a chance like that, doing something that hasn't been done. I know there's the Rebirth comics and things like that talk about him having a kid, and I'd love for them to have like a couple kids, a girl and a boy, and to see what kind of superpowers the kids could have and what's happening with the parents. And I think that'd be really interesting and could be a lot of fun. I would certainly be interested in doing that. And Terry said she might be interested in doing that as well. So we'll see if we can't get something like that happening. That'd be fun. I'd like that. 20 years later. The way they made Kurt Russell look really young in Guardians of the Galaxy 2? They could do that with me too, I'd be happy.
So then I guess we can talk about, since all the different, like Supergirl and everything that you've come up in, the new generation of fans. Can you kind of speak to the different way, because you said that when Terry Hatcher had the Break the Internet picture, it was like barely there.
It was 1845.
Yeah. So like, what are the kind of like biggest things or like the significant things you come to realize?
Well, I'll say this, because the show isn't on like Netflix or Amazon or Hulu, so the kids can't stream it. Like my son doesn't watch regular television. My son's 17. He goes on Netflix and starts flipping around, and then he goes, okay, let's watch this series. We watched Friday Night Lights. We watched other shows. Right now he's watching Nikita. And he just chooses something. He just goes through and starts watching. That's the show he's going to watch. That's all he wants. He doesn't know appointment television. Doesn't care what's on now. He was watching Flash. He was watching Arrow and stuff like that. But he just gets into one show and wants to watch that. And that's interesting. I think a lot of kids do that these days. So I do wish Lois and Clark was on in that sense, because what happens now, the young kids who see the show now are because their parents were fans as kids, and they have the DVDs. That's the only way they see them, which is really cool. It's always interesting to see someone come up, a younger person, and go, "Oh wow, I'm so nice to meet you. My grandma loved your show." No, all right. Or my mom, or something like that. But what I really love to do, and it's happened since I've been doing the conventions like this, I'd never realized it, and I've been doing them for about 4 or 5 years now. How long have I been doing it? 4 years? 5 years? 4? 4 years ago? 5? Okay, good. Perfect. And it's to hear like the when you're shooting a show, you're very isolated. And you don't get outside of your bubble, so to speak. You might read things on the internet. Again, it just started when we were there, but you don't get any fan reaction. You don't get to talk to anybody and find out how the show might have affected them or done something to them. And what I constantly, and it's the most gratifying thing, is to hear people say that they grew up watching the show, they had a hard time through high school, it helped them get through high school, or they had a real rough relationship with their parents, or they had a special bond with they'd sit and watch it with their mom every day, or their dad every day, or their grandparents. And that kind of a thing it's a wonderful thing to hear, because you're doing this hard work and you hope it affects people's lives, and you hope you entertain them and maybe teach them something or make them feel something. And it's great to hear that back, because you spend your lifetime doing it. When you're doing a show, I mean, it's like right now on Supergirl, those guys I was on set 18 hours a day. I would leave my home, typically I'd be home 18 hours after I left, every day, 5 days a week. And that would start at 5 a.m. on Monday when I'd leave for work, and I'd finish getting home at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. You have the Friday, Saturday, we call them Fraturdays. And because you're shooting night stuff, you always push the night stuff till the last part of the week, because you're always starting later and later each part of the day. And so you don't have a life. You have one day to sort of recover, and then you're back to work. And so those guys have no life outside of the show. So it's great to come out here and hear people say things and how it affected them. Also, I'm a single dad. I have a 17-year-old son. I have not taken the lead in any show for the last 17 years for that very reason, because I would not want to be an absentee father. And it's just me, so I refuse to have someone else raise him. So I've been doing a lot of smaller shows and guest starring on things, doing ensemble things, doing small films, but I won't do any show that takes me outside of LA, and no show that isn't an ensemble, and no film that takes me longer than 3 weeks abroad or anywhere else. So I've been lucky to do that. At the same token, then you run to people and they go, "Hey, Superman, you still acting?" And you go, "Yeah." I still do work. Yeah. If you're not on a series, sometimes people think you're not doing anything. It's an odd thing.
On that note, I was actually asked.
Yes, I have been working. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm kidding.
Before I say that, I wanted to say you mentioned basketball. Me and my brother, we used to watch back in the day, they used to televise the celebrity basketball.
Oh, the Rock and Jock, MTV Rock and
They were
Jocks.
the best.
Those were so much fun.
Absolutely the best.
I love those because you get to get out there with the real players and really play a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was fun. I remember when before I started playing Superman, I was like, I want to be an actor so I can go play in those things. Give me a chance to go be an athlete and run around with the real guys. It was so much fun. Then it started getting a little weird, and then they just went poof. They were gone. It's too bad, because it was fun getting out there and trying to be an athlete against the real guys. There's a big disparity in talent and height. You learn that really quickly. They still have some of those things at the NBA All-Star game, but it's not the same. It's not the same. But those were great fun. Oh, the old MTV Rock and Jocks. You can find them on the internet these days. They're still there. What blows me away with the internet and Twitter and things like that is I played professional football. I played for the Buffalo Bills. I didn't think there was any photos. I never saw any photos. Somebody didn't like the Bills? I hear. Okay. Did I hear Bill? No. And I had never really seen any photos of me playing back in the day. And then when our owner Ralph Wilson passed away, somebody posted a picture of him and Bruce Smith walking off the practice field. And I was like, wait a minute. And there I was, right there in the side of the background. I was like, that's me. How cool. I had never even seen the photo. There's old commercials that I've done and things like that people post on the internet. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I haven't seen that in 20, 30 years. Don't have a copy of it. Now it exists again. That kind of stuff is great fun. It's a big surprise. I'm glad that the internet, however, didn't exist when I was in college. Just gonna throw that out there. It's tough for you young folks to having to deal with all that social media stuff anything you do getting posted online. It's a little bit rough. I don't wish that upon anybody, because you make a lot of dumb choices when you're young. At least I did. You guys are probably very smart, but I made some bad choices. Although you can't prove it.
Would you be willing to do any web series in the future if you wanted?
You know, there's a funny thing. When I first started as an actor, it was you could be a television actor or a film actor, and then it became you had to be a television actor to transfer, to make that step to being a film actor. Johnny Depp, George Clooney, and then it became have a social media profile or sex tape. Sorry, kid. Sorry, something like that, and you get a shot, and it's really interesting. Then there's always been the sort of the rules. Oh, don't do this. I was told don't do Ripley's Believe It or Not. Don't you dare do that. It's going to ruin your career. It was the highest rated premiere for anything in basic cable when it came out, and it was a great thing for me to do. My company made the show. It was great fun. I enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. I was told don't get on news shows and talk politics. I didn't listen to them there. I do that all the time now. Don't go host the Today Show. I was told not to. I do that. So doing a web series, I would do a web series in a heartbeat. I think it's just constantly changing. I think what you do is constantly changing, and it depends. It's completely subjective. It depends on the individual. Some people, a lot of actors that I know are not comfortable being themselves in front of people. They want to just play a character, and those tend to be very good actors, but they hide in their characters, and that's what they like to do. That's just not me. I'm an athlete who works in film now, and I love writing, I love producing, I love directing. So doing a web series, if I had a chance to get on any media form and tell a story I wanted to tell, or do an interview show, or do whatever, I would do it. I really don't think there are any real set of rules. I think we're really recreating those rules all the time. It's an ever-changing business, so I'm game for anything.
In the back.
Besides Superman, what would be your favorite, one of your favorite roles, and why?
There's a couple. I looked at some of the films that I've done. One of the early films that I did is one of my favorite roles. Is a film called The Broken Hearts Club. And at the time I did that, I don't even know what year that was. A lot of young actors were doing it. It was myself, Timothy Oliphant, Zach Braff, Justin Theroux. It was a great bunch, and we all played gay in the film. At that time, it was a big shocker to do that. Oh my gosh, to do that. I never saw a problem with it. It was a hysterical script, very smart. I had to fight to get in the movie. They didn't want me in the role. And I said, but I want to audition for it. They're like, well, if there's no money in this thing, everyone's doing it because they love the project and this. And my agents were trying to discourage me. And I was like, but no, I want to go. And they go, you're going to have to go audition for it. I go, fine. They're like, okay, you got to read for that. I'm like, I'll do it. Let's go. So I fought my way in there, and I got it and did it, and I got the role. And it was great fun, and I'm still very, very proud of that film. I think it's a beautiful film. That was written and directed by Greg Berlanti. It was sort of his story. And it was the first thing he had directed. And Greg Berlanti, of course, is now the executive producer of Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, everything else. And it was an interesting thing. And it was sort of his story. And it was great to do that. So I love that film, and I love being a part of that. I really enjoyed playing opposite Denzel Washington in Out of Time. That was great fun. I think a great film. He is one of the greatest, if not the greatest actor out there. He had just won Best Actor for Training Day. He just directed and starred Antoine Fisher, but it hadn't come out yet. And he's still at the top of his game, and he was certainly at the top of his game then. He's a fantastic guy, and the opportunity to work with him at that level was outstanding. And I learned a lot from working with him. So those are a couple of the roles that stick in my head that I really enjoyed. I also got to play a cowboy in a thing called The Girl, the Gambler, the Gunslinger. Playing a cowboy is a lot of fun. My dad directed Young Guns, and he produced and directed that film. I've ridden horseback and shot guns my whole life, and I was very comfortable doing that stuff. And it was great fun because I get home after a whole day of filming, dirty and muddy, and take a nice shower, just be all clean. Oh, good. Wouldn't have to shave. And then in the morning I'd get up, take a shower again, but put on a baseball cap and just go to work because you're going to wear a cowboy hat all day, and it was great. So it was really fun. I mean, those things are fun. Making movies can be a lot of fun. And what I like about making films versus doing a television show is it's a finite period of time. You're going to do it for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks max, and you're done. You can take that character and put it aside. When you're doing a television show, a series, you live with this character for years, which is also can be fun, but it can be tedious at the same time because you don't feel like you have a life outside of it, and that's a tough balance. It's the first thing I told Melissa when she was cast, and we were doing the pilot episode for Supergirl. I go, just my one piece of advice is, it is a marathon, not a sprint. So bide your time carefully, make sure you get enough rest, and because it's so hard, because you get great opportunities to do things, on the weekend. So this shoot, to put this and do that, maybe shoot a film in the off time, and you end up having no time, and it can really, really drain you. I think that's why Tom Welling has been so reticent to do anything for the last 10 years. He spent 10 years working like that every day. I get tired just thinking about it, so he's got to still be tired. The Broken Hearts Club? It's a classic. As I first started reading it was just in a pile of 4 scripts I had to read for the weekend. I didn't know a thing about it, but I was laughing out loud. Yes, before it was LOL. I was laughing out loud as I was reading it, and I was like, "This is brilliant. I got to be a part of this." It was really funny.
That's the second thing I saw you in after Lois and Clark, and then I saw I Do But I Don't. Yeah.
Oh, I love those Hallmark movies.
A Nanny for Christmas.
Hallmark movies, Lifetime movies. I love making those. Part of the reason I did a lot of those, and I do a lot of like little kids movies, like silly kids movies, because kids, it's amazing. If you get a talking animal or something, like the kids go nuts. They'll just watch them forever, and they're so easy and fun to make, and they do it in a couple days. A lot of my friends are making these small films, so I'll go do, on that, basically to allude back to your question, is I'll go do a little tiny thing for 2 days on somebody's film, just because it's silly and fun, and they're a friend of mine, and that's no problem at all. That's just I'll do anything, and I just think that people become so precious about it, and it's an ego thing. And I think Michael Caine said it really well after he won an Oscar or been nominated for an Oscar or something, and then he went and did some silly comedy. They go, "Why would you go and do this after making this film?" And he said, "Because I'm an actor. I'm acting. It's my job, and that's it."
Can you talk a little bit about your cameo in Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23?
That's another one. That's a perfect example. So James Van Der Beek had been doing these these commercials, these silly commercials online, and it was the DILF jeans. As opposed to the MILF, it was the DILF, the dad. And it was very funny and over the top and hysterical. And I think that may have led him to playing an over characterized version of himself in Don't Trust the Bee. And they asked if I would be interested in doing that, and I had known James, and I thought, this is hysterical. And I love when you're an actor, your job is to be pretend. Is pretend. You're a grown man, you're pretending. I remember I was hanging upside down playing Superman at one point in time. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm hanging from a descender 44 feet, in the air, in a Superman suit at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Friday going, I went to Princeton for this? I'm going to die in a Superman suit because I was dropped down, and I was like, wow. But it's silly, and if you don't make fun of yourself, if you can't do that, other people will. And so I get the joke, and I laugh at it, and I think it's fun. So I embrace that. So to play a caricature of myself in Don't Trust the Bee was great fun. Because you can make fun of a lot of people that in a sense. I mean, the size of your dressing room or this or that. I mean, that stuff happens. It's petty and it's ridiculous, but it happens all the time. It'll happen here. I mean, I didn't do it, but it happens. It's just silly and fun. So I have a good time making fun of those sort of situations. And I'm a little bummed that show didn't go longer because I would have liked to see how the rivalry of Van Der Beek and Cain would go. But we did a little thing based on Dancing with the Stars, and Van Der Beek crushed that dance. I was like, what? Jumped up, did a flying, splits. I was like, James, how long you been doing this? He's been like, weeks, man. I've been working hard for weeks. So that's why they showed the entire dance, like in the credit sequence, because he's going to work that hard. You can't have it not show up. So it was great. It was great. He's a great guy. So that was a lot of fun.
Yes.
With the Ripley's Believe It or Not, I used to watch that all the time with my mom.
Yes.
She got me into it.
Strange and unusual. I appreciate that. Don't you?
What's the weirdest thing you ever saw?
Oh man, there were so many things. Well, first of all, we couldn't touch anything that was sexual in nature, so we kept all that out. There were a lot of weird things there that I can't get into, unless the kids want to put on the earmuffs. Honestly, we have another kid back there, so I want to make sure we don't talk about that. But I really liked. Well, I'm a history major, so I love history.
Me too.
One of the most amazing things I saw was one of the Derringers when John Wilkes Booth assassinated President Lincoln, he did it with a Derringer. He jumped off that balcony in the Ford Theater and landed and broke his leg. Well, when he landed, his backup Derringer fell out of his pocket. And it literally is a Derringer, and it says J. Wilkes Booth on it. And I held that Derringer in my hand. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Awesome. The car that drove Lee Harvey Oswald to work at the Texas Book Depository, that car was there to see that. And, that kind of stuff was amazing to me to see. The medical miracles were unbelievable. People, with half of their brain, they got shot and somebody could function with half a brain. Stuff like that always blew me away. I thought that was really interesting stuff. But I really like the historical artifacts. I like the things that even though they weren't so strange and unusual, it was just cool to see the actual artifact. This was in someone's hand. This was in John Wilkes Booth's hand. He had target practice with this or whatever he had done. It was just, and then he had the goal to go and kill the president. It was just it's just amazing to see that sort of stuff. So I really enjoyed seeing that stuff. I wish that show had gone on I wish I was still shooting that show. For a number of reasons. Number one, I made a whole lot of money on that show. But I really enjoyed it. It still airs all the time, and it airs internationally. And I have a lot of ownership in that, so I really wish it was still airing. But it was so much fun. I enjoyed it, and it was fun, and it was entertaining, and I wanted it to be different than the Jack Palance version where he was trying to scare everybody. I wanted people to watch it and learn something and have a laugh and enjoy it. It was great.
I like that, yeah.
That's right.
What is it like to switch from a fan base who was more like into like superheroes and things like that, a Hallmark type of fan base, and then to like a political fan base, like Crowder and all that?
That's it. Oh, you know Crowder. You're a kid. How old are you?
15.
Wow, you really are smart. Okay. That's something, I've never been one to try to know myself in that sense, and I try to encourage my son to have various groups of friends and things like that. I've always been one to sort of march by my own drum. When I was in college, we had eating clubs in college, which are like where you go and socialize. All the football players would go to this one or this one. I went to a whole different one. None of the went to had no football players. I've always sort of just done that, and it's the stuff that interests me. So I've always been very true to what I like, and that's kind of what it is. I'm not so worried about someone saying, oh, you can't do this, or you can't, believe it or not. But there's no rules. I can do that, and I want to. Oh, then you can't go do the Hallmark thing if you play Scott Peterson. I'm like, well, yeah, I can actually, and I'm going to. And I'm actually meeting with Hallmark this week. We don't know what's happening, by the way. I don't even know what's happening, but it's going to be exciting. Because I like those films. And, I was raising my son, and I like to have him come on set and see what we're doing and see those kind of things. And some of the movies he couldn't come on set because there was blood or gore or things like that, or it was scary. And I like making those movies as well. So I like to do a little bit of everything, sort of a jack of all trades in a sense. And then I just produced a documentary that deals with genocide. It's a historically based thing, and it deals with genocide, the Armenian genocide. And I'm taking my son next week to Poland. We're going to Auschwitz. We're going to the Warsaw Zoo. We're going to see these things, historical places that, have you seen The Zookeeper's Wife? I mean, we're going there. We're gonna actually I'll be giving an award to the Zabriskie family that did that. That kind of stuff is great, and I like to be able to do all bits and pieces of it. So I wouldn't pigeonhole myself. I love doing all the different things. I'll go make a talking hedgehog movie, and then the next day be talking to the President of the United States. I think that's kind of cool. Because those guys watch those movies too. Don't think they don't. They do. Yeah, they do, for sure. They're just a regular person like anybody else. Crowder might not watch that hedgehog movie. He might make fun of it, but that's okay.
Just another one, if I could.
Sure.
All right. Well,
It's a good follow-up question. I like that. It's like we're in the White House press pool.
have you ever had like a fan who, due to your political beliefs, has said said something to you on Twitter?
Oh, sure. People talk on Twitter all the time. Those keyboard warriors are fantastic. They're brave and say things. Here's the thing. I don't mind if anybody disagrees with anything I say about anything, but have a rational, contained argument. And when anybody turns to personal attacks, which is every other word in Twitter pretty much, I always figure I've won that argument. If someone has a better argument than me about something and their point of view makes more sense to me, I have no problem changing my point of view. If they can explain to me why this makes more sense, all the more power to them. But if they don't, and we can just agree to disagree, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not militant in any of my beliefs. I believe in so much liberty and freedom for everybody, and I want people to be able to be who they want to be. I believe in limited small government, and I'm open about that. You know, there are things that people disagree with like that, and they get very vitriolic. You know, they really want to demonize their opponents. I don't think that anybody has that in them. I think we all have pretty much. I think there's about 5 or 10% on the far right, 5% 10% on the far left, and those are the people who make all the noise. Everybody pays attention to them, and the rest of us are sort of somewhere in the middle. And I believe I'm somewhere in the middle, but I'm just not afraid to talk about it. I mean, what's great, I always think it's fun because someone will go, we don't want to hear an actor say anything about anything. I'm like, well, then don't listen to me. You're just a stupid actor. I do have a history degree from Princeton. I mean, I do kind of understand what I'm talking about, you know. And I do visit other countries all the time and go deal with. I'm going to be in Armenia in 3 weeks, sitting with the president of Armenia talking about the Armenian genocide for the second time. I've been there before, and I've been all through there, and I've studied it, and I've discussed it with survivors and people, and so I do speak about this stuff because I have some experience in it. But I would not say that I'm, you know, the overarching authority, but it's just, people just don't want to, they don't care what you do. They'll judge you, and I just try to have a little bit of patience with them, unless, of course, they call me names, in which case I insta-block. Wish I had a sound effect to it, insta-block. Maybe a flushing sound would be better. But I don't mind that. But no one's ever told me I wouldn't get a job because of that or anything like that. I've heard that said. Maybe I don't get jobs because of it. Maybe people disagree and just never even see me for it. And that's okay too. Yes, sir.
Since you played Superman and you meet all these other writers and stuff, do they give their 2 cents for it for the writers of DC Comics?
You know, it's interesting. We tried to, when we were shooting Lois and Clark, we worked closely with DC Comics. I remember Jeanette Kahn was then the president, and they were there. We were trying to coordinate and do things together. It's interesting. Nowadays, well, Andrew Kreisberg, who's the exec producer on Supergirl, he's a super geek, and he's the first one to admit it. And that's why he's brought myself in, and Helen Slater, and Linda Carter, and different people. He has a great respect for it, and he really knows everything about everything. I thought I knew a lot about Superman lore, and then he started talking, and I was like, what? It's amazing. So it's great fun. And so I know he talks to people, but he has great respect for the story. There are so many different variations now, the different worlds and different things, I can't keep track. But I think they do talk and take some inspiration from these guys and maybe borrow and steal and do little bits and pieces here and there, without a doubt. But I mean, it's so complex, and there's so many universes out there and so many things. I don't know that they work hand in hand anymore, but I know they certainly talk.
Awesome. That's it for today.
That's it? I thought we were just getting started. We're just getting warmed up. Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Everybody know the score of the Titans game yet? Titans game, what's going on? Anybody? No?
The score last time I checked was 13-10.
Who?
Raiders.
Oh, yeah, I like it. Stand up for your Raiders. Good job. All right, good job. Hey, thank you all for coming. I'll see you out there. Appreciate it.